Pete Koch has over 36 years of experience in the New England recreation industry, which includes 20 years spent either working in or managing many aspects of the ski industry, including mountain operations, resort services, lodging, and food service. Because the ski industry is so diverse, combining hospitality with construction, healthcare, manufacturing, and outdoor recreation, Peter has experience with almost all categories of businesses insured by MEMIC. Peter graduated from Springfield College with a Bachelor of Science degree in Recreation Industry Management. He holds current certifications from the National Ski Patrol, the Professional Ski Patrol Association, SPRAT, which is the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians, and CMC, Rope Rescue 3. He is an authorized instructor in both the OSHA 10-hour construction and the OSHA General Industry Outreach training programs, and teaches workshops for MEMIC ranging from safety leadership and ergonomics to fall protection and high-angle rescue. When not working for MEMIC, Peter and his wife own 5 daughters photography, and that means he has 5 daughters. They focus on landscapes, portraits, and creating photography fundraisers for teams and organizations. In his spare time, he loves to spend time outdoors with his wife and his 5 daughters, skiing, kayaking, hiking, camping, and playing music. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Pete, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Thanks, Nancy. I've been at MEMIC now for just about 18 years and as a safety management consultant, and I work primarily with the resort industry and the hospitality industry, although I have worked with construction and education in the past. Prior to getting here, I've been working in the ski industry just about all my life. So I have, prior to MEMIC, I was at Sunday River for 10 years. I was their risk manager for 4 years, patrol director for a few years, and then a patroller there. And at the beginning of that, I did a number of different jobs there. I was a snowmaker for a while, line patroller for a while, and then helped out with lift maintenance and other departments. And then prior to that, even before I came to Maine, I worked as the operations manager at a little ski area called Otis Ridge way down in western Massachusetts. And I did that the first really 2 years out of college because that's where I did my internship coming from Springfield College as a recreation management, outdoor education major there. So that's the kind of the tale going all the way from where I came from to where I am now.
Well, we have so much in common as far as the ski industry is involved because, of course, you know, I was the director of communications at Sugarloaf. And actually, when I was growing up, I went to Otis Ridge for a sleepover camp. It was like a ski camp. My parents sent me away, like when I was early in my teenage years, and to Otis Ridge, because I grew up in Connecticut and learned to ski at Mount Southington. But Otis Ridge was sort of like the next step up from Southington, and then we graduated on to Southern Vermont, and then on to Jay Peak, and then eventually to Maine.
Yeah, it's a small world. Interesting. You talk about the ski camp. I actually taught at the ski camp. It was my first job in the ski industry. So I too come from Connecticut. I hail from there, learned to ski at Page Park, which is just it was a rope tow in our hometown. And then I got asked to be a counselor at the ski camp and learned to ski and then taught skiing at the ski camp. And then part of my internship, I ran the ski camp for 2 seasons when I was out there, the assistant director of the ski camp for 2 seasons when I was there. So interesting how this is just a small world, right?
Yeah. We'll have to compare notes because maybe we were there at the same time. That'd be so funny. Yeah, I actually did learn to ski at a little hill in our hometown of Bethany. It was called Simpsons, and it was just a rope tow. So that was before going to Southington. So it is interesting how, these little ski hills in hometowns can get people started on a lifelong passion like skiing has been for me and my family.
Yeah, it certainly can.
So we recently worked with you and the team at Mimic to create the Safety Experts podcast. We created what we call a Marshall Plan for the podcast. And tell us about the process and how it's going now.
Sure. That was a great process to go through, actually. So we had this idea, this concept, and my manager, Rod Stanley, and I were having a conversation. Actually, it's been probably 3 years now, about how do we use different media to get the safety message out. And we settled on podcasts because we both enjoy podcasts. We like listening to them and find that the conversation back and forth between two people that have experience in a particular topic is a great way to get the story out. However, we weren't really sure how this all fit together. So we did a couple of proof of concept recordings, posted it up the chain at Mimic, and we got the opportunity to give it a go. Got communications involved. They contacted Marshall Communications, and then you guys came in and helped us put a plan together to not only launch the podcast, but really narrow down what our focus would be, how we wanted to communicate, what message we wanted to get across, what was our niche market, so to speak, and then how broad could we make it? What kind of audience do we want to capture? So it was really good working with you and Greg to first of all sit down and talk about what we wanted to do, and for you to listen to us. And then for you to come back with that Marshall Plan and then give us almost a step-by-step process of how to make the podcast happen, all the way from production to scheduling to graphics to communications marketing and then finally measuring. So that was a really good experience that we had.
Well, Greg Glynn from the Marshall Communications team and I really enjoyed going through the process with you and your team. And I do think that's one of the magical things about the Marshall Plan process is that we assemble a team so we have the best thinking of you as a client and not just you as an individual, but a whole team of people from the client side, from Mimic, and then a team of us from the Marshall Communications side. So we spent 3 months going through the process. So it's not like you're rushing through, but you're thinking of all the details because now that you've been doing it for a while, there's a lot of details that go into not only producing, but appropriately marketing a podcast.
Yeah, there are a ton of details, and it's really easy to miss a couple of those really important ones. And we're fortunate because we had you to come in and help us with getting those details together and putting some checklists together there. But not everybody has that, and I do sympathize or empathize with those folks that are just starting out, trying to make this whole thing work. And there's a ton of details, but I guess if I could say one thing to them is just stick with it because you'll get it. It'll come together well for you if you just put the work in it ahead of time.
Yeah, I do think there is a statistic out there that the average podcast only has 7 episodes before the podcaster abandons it because they do realize that it's a big undertaking. So I agree with you. You do have to just stick with it. And, I'm very proud that now this episode actually is my 113th episode of the PR Maven podcast. So it definitely has changed my career. How has the podcast changed your career? What do you like about producing the Safety Experts podcast?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, I guess one of the ways it's changed my career is it helped move me into the new position that I have for loss control, the manager of digital technology. So it incorporates a lot of parts of this, not just the podcast, but the podcast is certainly one of those things. So my job now for Mimic and for loss control is to help us figure out how to get the message out about workplace safety in different media. So it's not always just print media like it had been 20 or 30 years ago. It could be video, it could be audio, it could be webinars. There's lots of different ways to get the message out in a unique way. And the podcast has given me, well, it's helped me try to see what different media is best to get different messages out. And some things you can't use a conversational media like a podcast about. It needs to be either on paper or something more structured. But then there's other information that is great for people to be able to listen to find out a little more information about the topic or go in a deep dive into the topic and then bring that back to their workplace. So it's made me look at communication of the safety message in a very particular way.
And I'm sure it has strengthened relationships with your customers, employees, and partners. So how has it helped Mimic to strengthen its brand essentially with customers, employees, partners, and vendors in the industry?
Well, we're really just starting out. We're coming into our first year, and we're dropping podcasts every couple weeks. But I think the a couple of good examples of how it's helped strengthen the relationship when we are able to reach out to not only our own group of safety experts to help communicate the message, but it allows us to develop a very personal relationship with some of our policyholders and clients, to reach out to them for their expertise, because we recognize that we don't have all the answers for a particular solution, and that our policyholders who are living and breathing their trade on a daily, hourly basis are able to bring a lot to the table. So when we can tap into their expertise and partner with them, it really does help strengthen that bond that we have as a partner with them as a workers' comp carrier or as a partnership for safety.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate the interest that you show in them as well. I think that having a guest on your podcast is somewhat of a flattering invitation when you extend the invitation. And, the fact that you're willing to share a conversation and broadcast it, so to speak. So that, I know for me personally, one of the things I love about my podcast is just the opportunity like this to have a pretty extensive chat with someone like you, and then to share it with my listeners. So we're going to continue our conversation with Pete from Mimic shortly. But first, I want to tell you about my new book. It's actually my second book called Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand, which is now available on Amazon.com as a paperback or Kindle edition. And soon you'll also be able to purchase the Audible edition as well. And the book includes actionable advice on growing a network and growing a brand, which is essentially what we're talking about with Pete today, growing a network of brand ambassadors around the Mimic brand or the Marshall Communications brand or your brand. So if you take care of your audience and serve up content that they find interesting, educational, and engaging, then you're going to grow a tribe of brand ambassadors. And that's what I talk about in the book. So I hope you'll check it out. And we'll be back with more from Pete Koch from Mimic in just a moment.
Do you want to grow your client or customer base? Perhaps increase brand awareness? Maybe tell your unique story more effectively? Of course you do. But you may be worried that you don't have enough expertise to make that happen. Well, no worries, PR Maven Nation. Let the PR Maven herself, Nancy Marshall, show you how easy it is to get your message across effectively using a powerful yet simple tool, a message map. Nancy's training is often called informative and constructive, well-designed and impactful, with a perfect blend of theory and real-life experience. You will leverage Nancy's expertise to create your own message map when you register for this comprehensive online video training course, which is broken down into 4 easy-to-understand modules. Normally, this course is priced at $147, but for listeners of the PR Maven podcast, that's you, PR Maven Nation, it's only $29 when you enter the code word podcast during enrollment. It even includes a workbook and bonus content to guide you through the process. So go to prmaven.com and click on the Message Map Mastery course to enroll today. Remember, enter the word podcast during enrollment for a special discounted price of $29.
Welcome back, and today we're talking with Pete Koch, Safety Management Consultant at MEMIC. Oh, actually, I think you have a new title, though. Do you have a new title, Pete?
I do. So it's I still try to keep the safety management consultant because I do that the most. But my new title with MEMIC is Manager of Digital Technology for Loss Control.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Or it's long, at least.
Congratulations on the new title. I want to dive right back in. We were talking about using a podcast to build your brand, and you were saying that the Safety Experts podcast is still relatively new, but you're hoping that it will help strengthen the MEMIC brand. And how do you see that happening?
So it's a really great question. And initially, when we thought about the podcast, it was how to communicate the safety message in a different way. But what we've realized as we've started recording and reaching out to different safety experts is it helps us to solidify or really put that brand out in a different way. And part of the MEMIC brand is the partnership with, whether it be our agency partners or our policyholders, that we're in it to help us or help everyone succeed in workplace safety. And so the way we're seeing the podcast help to strengthen that brand is just another partnership. It's not just all about the MEMIC experts as the only people on the podcast. We, again, recognize that our policyholders have expertise, our agency partners have expertise, and we can bring them in to talk about a particular topic and come up with some pretty interesting solutions and hopefully help others understand that they can reach out to either other industry partners to solve a particular safety problem, or they can reach out to us in partnership to help solve that as well.
Well, I think it's great when you think about partnering with customers and vendors to solve problems, because that will definitely strengthen your relationships. I mean, if you can solve a problem that will help eventually either save lives or prevent injuries from happening on the job, that's something that can be extremely rewarding. You can almost celebrate, like, look at what we did here. I'm thinking, in the ski business, obviously there's a lot of incidents and accidents that can happen on the job. Having worked in the ski business, I've witnessed some of those that were pretty horrific. And I think that when you work collaboratively with people who are working in a certain position day in, day out, you can really, as I said, save lives or prevent serious accidents from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money with that for sure. The more you can partner with someone, the more you can work with someone, the more that you realize you have probably a common path to that solution. And whether it be your guest safety, public safety, or my passion, workplace safety, there's almost always a common path to that solution, and really integrating the three pillars of making a business successful, which would be safety, quality, and productivity. If you work those three together in balance, then you almost have to be successful.
All right. So those three pillars are safety, quality, and productivity.
You got it.
All right. That's great. I wrote that down so we can remember that. So let's switch gears a bit to your family's side business, which is 5 Daughters Photography. And Pete, does that mean you have 5 daughters?
It does, Nancy. I have 5 daughters.
That's a lot of daughters.
It is a lot of daughters. I'm a man well blessed, for sure.
You are a lot of estrogen in your household.
Yes, there is.
So tell us about 5 Daughters Photography.
Sure. So it's another interesting story. So our five daughters, they range from 25 down to our youngest is 13 now. And we've all been interested in different things. So when our oldest were the youngest, actually, and before they left the house, when they were still in grade school, we actually started a business called Five Daughters Baking or Five Daughters Bakery. So even the youngest one, who was probably two at the time, would help bake bread and sticky buns, and we would sell it to neighbors and friends and friends and family. So it was a way to kind of get the girls together to learn a little bit about business, a little bit about what you can do with some talent. So sort of out of that grew a love of creating things. And I remember taking a picture for our five daughters baking cards that we had. We had flour all over the table and a couple of sticky buns in the background, and all of the girls right hands in a circle. So that was the part of the Five Daughters Baking logo. And I took that picture, and my second oldest daughter was pretty interested. So we spent some time kind of playing around with the phone and taking some pictures, and then it waned for a while. And then we got into photography, my wife and I, just taking pictures for a local gymnastics team to do their team pictures. And from there, it kind of grew. We needed a business. We're going to do some more work. So we started taking team pictures within our local area. We've done some weddings. We've done events for people. It started off with family and friends, and it's kind of grown from there. And it's grown to the point where that one daughter who was interested in photography, she's now down in New Hampshire and is going to be, she's part of the Army Reserves. She's going to be deployed here in December. She's started her own photography business on the side that's called Hannah Photography. So she's doing senior photos for a lot of the high school students that are going to be graduating this year. So it's been an interesting road, and it's been a pretty fun way to discover interests and meet people and learn a different craft.
I think that's awesome that you're teaching your girls entrepreneurship and how to work as a team, because I'm sure that there's times when they might not always agree on how to go about a certain challenge in the business,
Five
whether it's
daughters not agree? Come on, Nancy.
I'm sure they all have their opinions.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so you must be so proud of your daughter who's in the reserves. She's going to be deployed in December. Where is she going to be deployed to?
She's going to Guantanamo Bay, so
Wow.
Cuba.
Well, I will be thinking of you. That's a big step, and to have your little girl going off so far away and during the pandemic, no less. So, Pete, I find it very interesting that you are a photographer and an insurance professional. Does that engage both your left brain and your right brain?
It does, and I do think it helps because as a safety professional, there's certainly a lot of standards and statistics and rules and regulations that I have to be familiar with. But then the creative side, you have to be able to look at a situation and apply those standards in a way that's going to be functional for the particular company that you're working with. So there's a good way to combine those two together. I don't know if I've found that way, but I've certainly found employing the creative side of me helps me look at the problem maybe a little bit differently so I can come up with a slightly different solution than you might find if you just read through the regulation.
Well, I think that the two businesses that you and your family started, a baking business and a photography business, probably also used both sides of the brain, because both baking and photography are sort of left brain and right brain, and then of course all the skills that are involved with growing a business involve both sides of the brain too. I know I'm more on the creative side than the side that wants to deal with the insurance and the bankers and the accountants, but luckily I have people that can help me with that.
It's a really good point. It's always good to have people on that side. My wife takes care of a lot of the uh, the financial stuff around the business, and even when we're taking pictures and doing things, we split things up. She might be dealing with like set up and how this is going to work, and I'm trying to figure out how the shot's going to happen. So we try to use our strengths in order to be successful within the particular task that we're doing at the time, regardless of what business it is. And I think, like, it's hard to be successful without good people, because you'll end up, especially like with a podcast or with anything, that you need to use a lot of your creative self to uh, to work and to be successful. It's great to have somebody else there who can help you with some of those more challenging things. And I know for me too, I don't always enjoy the statistical side and the rules and regulations. Sometimes I like the creative problem solving side more, but it's always good to have a group of people that you can tap into to talk about those things if you need that.
I agree absolutely. And I also agree that if people on a team are doing something that they're very good at, or, that they have a certain superpower in a certain area, they're probably going to do a better job than if they're forced to do something that they're not so good at. I always think of the day back at Sugarloaf when I had to manage the mail room over a certain summer because things were slow in the marketing department. And I was really not very good at managing the mail room, and I was not very happy. And I probably didn't do the greatest job sorting those bulk mailings. But that's an example of, I probably was not the best in that position because I didn't really enjoy it that much. So, but I know too, when you're just starting a career, you have to kind of do whatever you're asked to do and have a good attitude about it. So, is there value, or have you found there's value in having a personal brand and a professional brand? And how do the two overlap?
I hadn't thought of that question really, but I do think there is value of having a personal brand and a professional brand, and I don't think that they are all that different. And I think to be successful with whether it be a personal business and a professional business, that brand that you put forth, which is really the essence of who you are and what your business is, what values do you purport. If you have a different value set in your personal brand than you have in your professional brand, I'm not sure that the two can overlap well, and you can be really successful in either for the long term. Anybody can be successful in anything for the short term, but it's the long term success that I think is what everyone's looking for, because you don't want to keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping or trying something brand new because you failed at something here. You want to be successful with the brand that you have and build upon that brand by the challenges that you've faced and overcome in the past. So I do think there's value to having both that personal brand and professional brand, and I think you can hone both of them together by working on your personal brand and bringing some of those values over to the professional work that you do.
Well, certainly, I think with you and perhaps with me, you worked a lot in the ski business, and that is one of your passions. And I feel that that's probably a big part of your personal and professional brand. So the two overlap for you. And of course, you live near Sunday River Skiway now. So I'm sure that plays a big role in your life.
Yeah, it does. When I kind of think about if I think about skiing as part of my personal brand and part of the value of really wanting to be outdoors and participate in activities that are outdoors year round, and skiing is certainly one of those things. I was able to use that passion that I had in my personal life to great extent in my professional life. And I work with the National Ski Patrol, both with their outdoor emergency care and medical program. I work with their outdoor transportation or their skiing and toboggan program, and I can bring some of that from my personal life back into my professional life because I can talk to the patrollers, I can talk to the ski school folks, I can work with the lift mechanics, not only because of my personal experience in the past, but because of how the two brands overlap. Because they can see the expertise that the personal experience can bring.
Yes, I'm sure that they're more likely to trust what you have to say because you're kind of one of them. They're your people. So you're not coming from the outside. It's really important when people know, like, and trust you because then they're more likely to listen to what you have to say.
It's all about relationship, really. It really is. You can't convince someone of something without having a relationship with them first.
Yes, absolutely. So, Pete, what changes have you made in your personal and professional life due to coronavirus?
Well, we were just talking about this earlier, and professionally, our company has had a phased reentry to the workplace. So the majority of our company is working remotely, and then from a loss control consultant standpoint, our jobs are to be in front of the client or be with the client. And we've had to find many different ways to engage our policyholders over technology. So, as everyone else has been doing over Zoom or WebEx or another video conferencing standpoint, but we've gone to the point where we're using FaceTime or another video conferencing app to go on a virtual tour of a workplace or to visit a work site that we're not able to access because of coronavirus. Whether it's in a hotspot that our company restrictions won't let us go to at this point in time in our phased restart, or it's because the company that we're trying to assist doesn't want any outside of their own company cohort coming into the workplace. So we've had to find different ways to be engaging, and I'm sure that you have seen this in some of your own interactions that you uh, video conferencing isn't always the best way to engage your audience, but it is the only way that some of us have right now. So we've had to try to find different ways to use that to become engaging. So that's definitely been a change for us professionally.
Yeah, I have found that in the age of coronavirus, and we can't really be seeing people face to face. We're trying a lot of different things, a lot of different social media platforms, and we've done online courses, and we've been doing webinars and speaking engagements virtually for chambers of commerce and other groups. So we're trying a lot of different types of content because it's not one size fits all. The people on the other end, some of them like podcasts, and some are not even listening to podcasts right now because they're not really spending time in their car. So I think that trying a lot of different modes of communication is necessary due to coronavirus.
Very much. Yeah, don't be afraid. I think that's the thing. If someone contacts you and they're trying to use a different platform or communicate with you on a different platform, don't be afraid. Check that platform out and see what it has to offer. Each of the platforms work fairly similarly, but there are some differences that make it more beneficial for different purposes.
Absolutely. That's a good point. So, Pete, is there a book, an app, or a website that has helped you in your career, and why?
There's been lots of books over the years that I've enjoyed reading that have helped me. I think one of the books that I've read relatively recently in the last few years it's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and I forget the other author's name, but it's How the Navy SEALs Lead and Win, and it's a book on leadership that looks at leadership from an ownership standpoint. Like I not only have to lead, but I have to own what I'm doing. And that's helped me in my own professional and personal life as I start to see projects come across my desk, or I have interactions with different policyholders. If I'm not going to own what I'm going to suggest, or I'm going to hold someone else accountable for, if I'm not going to own that, then there's less chance for success for that particular person. So it's an interesting concept, this ownership of what you're doing. And it's not the only time that that's been purported out there. I just found the way that it was described within the book from the concept of the SEALs was a different way that I've heard leadership discussed. And I thought that was that's helped me really think about how I manage my projects and the people that I work with.
I love the premise of that because, you always want people in the workplace to take ownership of their job and their responsibilities and feel a certain sense of responsibility for seeing things through. So I like that title, and I will definitely check out that book. I have not read that. So thanks for the suggestion. Pete, how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up?
Probably the best way, if they want to check me out in the podcast, is they can email me at podcast@memic.com, or they can shoot me an email right at my work email, which is pkoch@memic.com.
That's great. And yes, we will definitely link to the Safety Experts podcast in the show notes and encourage people to check that one out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I appreciate your time because I know you have a lot going on between your busy job and then these 5 daughters that you have at home, not to mention your wife, too. But thanks. I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again. And I thank everyone in PR Maven Nation for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Nancy.
That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.